The Napoli roller coaster is back up and running. It's no longer going through the sewer like it was last season. Instead, they're climbing peak after peak and leaving their supporters on their toes, as always. I mean, with a coach like Antonio Conte joining forces with someone like Aurelio De Laurentiis, that feels like missing gasoline with gasoline. Add that in with the Osimhen situation from the beginning of the season, and from the outside looking in, Napoli seem to be getting off to a strange start. But as we'll cover today, with the help of the great Dom from Napoli Talk, linked below, though Napoli looked like they had employed a figurative flame dancer to come and work in their fireworks factory, that has seemingly so far, that's the key, so far, it's looked like a masterstroke.
Things have been relatively calm so far between the two. They've been on the same page, but that's not to say that things will not deteriorate and boil over at some point in the future.
I mean, I did an entire video on the life cycle of Antonio Conte at the clubs, and he seems to have that 3-season limit that Mourinho has. He's known to cause major issues when he doesn't get the players that he wants. He quit on Juve just days before the season began. He left Inter right after winning Serie A due to the financial constraints he would have in the coming summer window, as well as being forced to lose his loved Lukaku and Hakimi. For all of the good that he brings, and let's not get it twisted, he's almost a guarantee of silverware, but for all of that good, there's always the risk of implosion. The same could be said of De Laurentiis.
That was always going to be a little bit of an issue when you calculated things, but ultimately Napoli needed someone that was ready for the Serie A, ideally had won it before, and could get these players running and motivated again. Because what happened last year, I don't want to speak too much about.
No problem, man, but I will certainly speak about it. Imagine going from one of the best teams in Europe, certainly the best team in Italy by far under Spalletti, and then to what happened last season. I guess Napoli had their own kind of Conte wins the Scudetto for Inter and snaps a long break for them and then leaves kind of moment, as Spalletti packed it in after conquering Italy, leaving De Laurentiis to sign a new coach, and his decision was brutal. Rudi Garcia. When Rudi Garcia didn't work, who did he bring in as his replacement? Walter Mazzarri. He didn't work either. Napoli continued to slump, and Francesco Calzona split his time between the national team of Slovakia and Napoli. The outcome? Napoli go from finishing in 1st to 10th, one of the most horrific title defending seasons you could find. It's like they saw how AC Milan struggled after winning the league in 2022, and they said, "You think that's bad? Oh, we can do worse. Much worse." In fact, that was the season in which I found myself in Napoli and linked up with Dom to go see their match against Monza, just after Christmas. What great luck, eh? Choosing the worst season to see them play. The crap season, sandwiched between a Scudetto win and a team that looks inspired under Antonio Conte. But hey, anyway, that's my luck with football matches. So, you can understand why Napoli would look to someone like Antonio Conte, risks associated with him and all, because they needed a culture change within the squad after that terrible 23-24 season.
It was way, way, way below the minimum targets that we had. It was outside of our wildest imagination, and I think you needed a strong leader to pull these guys out of the lack of confidence really that they developed over that season and to steady the ship. It was a high risk, high reward type of thing. Ultimately, it was the right decision, at least for this season, for how it's going.
But before the season even began, you had two players, the stars of that title-winning season, who were seemingly unsettled. One of them being Kvaratskhelia, who never spoke out in the media about being unhappy, but his father and agent spoke of how he dreamed of moves away, with PSG links becoming stronger and stronger in the summer. But perhaps those statements were just being used as leverage, because in Kvara's case, it seems as though he'd be happy to stay at Napoli, and it's strictly a matter of him being compensated appropriately given his star status within the league and his impact on the pitch.
That's not completely settled, because Kvara is still one of the lowest earners, not just in Napoli, but in the league in general, still on that 1 million a year contract, which is ridiculous for his market value. But it has been to some extent settled by Conte. See, one thing that Conte did walking into this club is that he said, look, there's a lot going on here with contractual situations. There's the Osimhen thing, the Di Lorenzo thing, the Kvara thing. If you have a contract with this club and I want you to stay, then you stay. If you're not happy with that, don't worry, I'll deal with you personally. You can wash the dishes or clean some boots, but you're staying at this club if I want you to stay. So you can either choose that or play with us. And he made that message very clear to Di Lorenzo, to Kvara, to Lobotka, to Anguissa, all these players that are critical for Conte's system. He said, you're staying. And with Osimhen, it was kind of the opposite. It was, you're leaving.
Victor Osimhen, who again, I did an entire video on his saga leaving the club, but he needed to be dealt with quickly by the club and Conte. And Conte is certainly the man you'd want leading the squad in this kind of want-away star situation. It was communicated to Napoli that Osimhen didn't want to play for the club again, and so Napoli made sure to not even consider him for the preseason. In preseason, he didn't appear once, not even on the bench. He wasn't even considered as a fallback option for Conte.
What Conte did coming into this season is send out the message of, look, we're moving on from Osimhen. He's a great player. I really like him, but we're moving on. And I'm not even going to give the slightest indication that I might change my mind. He didn't even say bye to the fans, right? When he left the club, no post on social media, no nothing. So, it's very much a thank you for 2 seasons ago and have a good life. And maybe we'll see each other on the field again as opponents, but probably not as friends again.
And so naturally, fans will be thinking, well, if Osimhen is out, then Conte will need a striker. I wonder who it would. Yeah, it's going to be Lukaku, isn't it? It was always going to be Lukaku, as Conte loves the dude. He wanted him at Chelsea, he got him at Inter, he probably would have taken him at Spurs if Kane wasn't there, and why not? In that time at Inter, Conte managed to turn Lukaku into a monster as the Lalu partnership tore up Italy, and Lukaku was the most complete, dominant version of himself. His passing was on, his hold-up play was improved from constant battles with Ranocchia and Inter training. His finishing was superb. He could run in behind, he could run with the ball. He was a menace. And of course, with Conte needing a striker,
there was always a plan A, a plan A, and a plan A. There was no plan B, no plan C. We waited until almost the final day of the transfer market for Lukaku, but we all knew from all the way back in June that it was going to be Lukaku and no one else. Lukaku wanted Napoli, Conte wanted Lukaku, and if there's a player that's willing to come in, willing to take a pay cut, work with a personalized physio over the summer to join you and has a good relationship with your coach, then you accept that.
So far, so good. The magic is seemingly back with Lukaku playing under Conte like they never left each other's side. From just 6 appearances, Lukaku has scored 3 goals and assisted 5 times. Unbelievable numbers at the moment, as he is averaging a goal contribution every 45.4 minutes. But there were other arrivals as well. David Neres from Benfica, who in his substitute appearances always seems to contribute. 2 goals and 4 assists in just 139 minutes of play. That's an unbelievable rate. Scott McTominay, a player often torched by parts of the United fan base, is able to shine at Napoli as he hasn't been played in such a deep position. He's played to his strengths. Guys, don't make me do it. Don't make me get the McTominay tweet out. Okay, here it is. See, he needs to be played further up the pitch. He already has 2 goals and an assist for Napoli in 299 minutes. He is useful in the final third. Finally, he's getting used as such. Spinazzola came in on a free transfer. That's a great coup. Billy Gilmour's minutes have been limited, but he'll grow into the team, I'm sure. And finally, perhaps the most important of all, Alessandro Buongiorno from Torino.
This has been one of our strongest summer markets in recent times, and it's a polar opposite to last year. This season we got, I think the most important signing of all is actually Buongiorno in defense, who was the Torino captain at just 24 years old last season, and we managed to convince him to leave his boyhood club. Similar story to McTominay. These are guys that have leadership. Buongiorno statistically was the best defender in Serie A last year.
And Napoli, for their part, the hole that Kim Min-jae left was quite telling last term. They were one of the worst teams defensively in Serie A. Well, they were ranked 10th for goals conceded, but this was absolutely an area that needed to be addressed, hence buying the best in league Buongiorno and bringing in Rafa Marin as depth at the back. So what does all of this add up to? A fantastic start for Napoli, of course. Well, not literally, as things started quite poorly in August before they brought in the guys like Neres, Lukaku, McTominay, etc. They were forced to go to penalties against Modena in Coppa Italia, then started Serie A off with a 3-0 loss against Hellas Verona. But from there, they have won every match but one, a draw away to Juventus. Their record in Serie A, despite the big loss, sees them ranked in first currently. But what does this team look like? Is it just Conte's same old 3-5-2 to hell and back? Or has he changed things up a bit?
He's playing both with a 3-man defense and a 4-man defense. That's the first thing. He adapts based on the opposition. Maybe he knows that Napoli is not yet the strongest team in the league. And so we do have to adapt a little bit to the opposition, and we cannot go and impose ourselves to every single team out there yet. For example, if we take our 3-man defense, you've got Di Lorenzo as our right center back, and he's been scoring goals, but not just, from free kicks or where you would normally expect a defender to score. No, he's been scoring goals, getting himself forward as a center back. He's the guy that's on the end of crosses. He's doing the full pitch. He's coming into the midfield when maybe Anguissa and Lobotka drop back a little bit to get a wider view of the field and distribute play from further at the back.
Dom also noted that Kvara's role is changing a little bit, given the strength and elegance he has on the ball. He's a pretty big dude, actually. He's moved from a pure winger to a player who drifts inside far more to play closer to Lukaku and combine with the Belgian striker. Where he used to start from the wing and maybe roam inside with the ball at his feet, he's now roaming inside without it as well.
In the top, you've got Lukaku, who is able to get defenders very, very busy, and it's taking away a lot of pressure from some of the other forward guys like Kvara, Neres, Politano, McTominay, whoever is in the forward positions. It seems like defenders gravitate towards Lukaku, and it just leaves a lot of space in behind for the wingers and the midfielders to come forward. But even though that was similar with Inter it was Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez playing very close to each other. So he had that pure other number 9 next to him. With Napoli, it's much more about guys like Di Lorenzo, Kvara, McTominay, so guys from deeper coming in and making those runs. So it's a bit more, I would say a bit more vertical down the middle than Inter was. Inter had some great flanks. They had Perisic at his prime and Hakimi down the flanks, whereas Napoli don't have strong full wing backs. We basically focus our attention a lot just down that spine of the team, whereas I think Inter was very much focused on going long, the vertical down the flanks.
So this all sounds great. Napoli are playing well. They have their confidence. They have strong leaders both in the coaching position and amongst the squad. And it shows in their performances in the league so far. However,
it's a bit one-dimensional though, I must say. We lack a little bit of that lateral push that Conte's teams usually have. But I think that's just something that we have to address in the next few transfer markets.
Napoli supporters, do not come for me if you start to stop and start of the season. I am simply reporting on what has happened so far. I do not have any jinxing powers. Jinxes aren't real anyways from creators. I have no powers here. I'm going to become a jinx truther. But while I'm not making any predictions, how are Napoli supporters feeling about this season now that they've had a successful start?
Over the last 2 or so match days, I think things have started to shift a little, where people are now saying, why can't we win the Scudetto again? And it's not so much because we feel like we are an invincible team like we did 2 years ago. We're far from it. A lot of our wins have been quite lucky, but we're seeing Juventus struggle. We thought that maybe that could have been a strong team with Motta. We're seeing Inter, not quite the Inter of last year. Milan have got Fonseca, and he doesn't seem to have the dressing room, and we're thinking, well, he's not that great, he's not that great. So, I mean, we're not that great either, but hey, we're in the same boat as them. So now the mood has shifted to, okay, let's give this a go. Let's try.
Regardless, we'll either be entertained on the pitch or entertained by Conte's comments off of it. So for us neutrals, it's a win-win. Thank you to Dom for helping me out here. His links are in the description, and thanks to you for watching. I'm Adrian. Have a great day.